What is up, my beautiful gemstones? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be discussing real monsters in the closet, and this is a part 2. Welcome back to the 7 Days of Halloween, a series I try my very best to put out every year around this time of year, because after all, it's spooky season. I wanted to talk about something I think most of us have been afraid of at one point or another in our lives, usually when we're young kids, but not always, and that's what we believe to be hiding in our closets. The fact of the matter is, most of us call things that lurk in the closet monsters. Like, there's a monster in my closet. But what does the word monster really mean? And more than that, what does it mean in this context? Well, it could literally be anything, and in fact, I already did a video about a year ago called Real Encounters with Monsters in the Closet, and it covered a wide variety of things that go bump in the night that people reported having encountered in the closets of their homes, mainly in places where they sleep, but not always. Closets aren't only in the bedrooms of houses, guys. This time I took it a step further and decided to collect some encounters with very specific types of monsters that sometimes can be found lurking in the darkness of a closet in a home, where most of the time the person or people it's there watching have no clue it's even there in the first place. Well, at least I looked at articles and reports with the heading of a particular entity, but I doubt very much that each and every case will actually involve what the victim/witness thinks it did. Today we are discussing real encounters with demons in the closet. That was initially what I was going to name this video. I would forewarn you, though, that for the most part, these encounters are what the experiencer thinks are demons in their closet, and what I found to really not be demons. So that's why I put little air quotes around the word demons, because that's how the people with the encounters have chosen to label their own stories. But as I skimmed through them, I was doubtful, not in the terror of it all, but the fact that most of these, or even all of them, were encounters with actual real demons or demonic entities. I will put the disclaimer up again before some of you go at me in the comments that most, if not all, of these stories came from Reddit and or similar sites, and therefore couldn't be confirmed. If you want to hear stories that can be confirmed as having happened every time, I will say two things before we get started. One, you have every opportunity to send me your own personal true encounters with anything at all at any time. And two is that this is a paranormal community, and it's very hard. It's extremely difficult to factually verify any encounter when really the only person or people who can verify the claims being made are the ones who encounter the entity or entities themselves and almost never have any sort of real tangible evidence. It's not like demons leave behind a calling card. At the end of the day, it's supposed to be a Halloween special as well, so let's keep it all in good fun. Also, let's remember that here on this channel, I am not in the habit of discounting or discrediting witnesses simply because I might never have had an experience like the ones they're talking about here today. It's traumatizing enough to have to go through something like this in the first place, and I wouldn't want to be the one making it harder on a witness/victim with my own disbelief or absolute refusal to even consider that what they went through, which is usually very real to them at the very least, especially when almost all of us know exactly how that feels, to just like discredit them. If you don't believe, that is fine. Maybe just try to keep an open mind and at the end of the day, have some fun with it. But please do not victim shame in the comments. Thanks, and without further ado, jumping right in. Our first encounter comes from someone in Virginia, and it can be found on the site Your Ghost Stories. Our witness and his wife moved into a house they were renting in 2010, and from almost their first night there, they both started having extremely terrifying, very real-seeming nightmares. The nightmares were so intense and made them so fearful because of how real it all seemed that he said it was unlike anything either of them had ever experienced before. They had a young daughter, and at the same time as he and his wife were dealing with the nightmares, the daughter started behaving strangely as well. There was a large closet area in the home that was located in the bathroom. It was adjoined to the daughter's room, but the bathroom faced the master bedroom where our witness and his wife, and I think the daughter, slept. So I think it's called a mother-daughter, where you have one room, a bathroom separating it from another room. So 2 rooms, bathroom in between. So this little girl began to tell her parents that there was a deep and intense feeling of terror and dread emanating from that closet. And whenever she would go near it, she would start feeling terror and dread. She would pick up on those emotions, on that energy. She also heard strange noises and even claimed that on one occasion something from the closet had pushed her down to the floor. The parents, of course, thought it was in her imagination, and didn't think much of it at first, and they weren't putting two and two together about their own nightmares and strange experiences since moving into the new home and what was going on with their daughter. Our witness, the girl's father, started feeling the same types of feelings surrounding that closet very quickly too, though, and then he acted and hung a crucifix directly above it to try and keep the family safe and ward off anything evil that might have been lurking inside or around that closet. He went on to explain, quote, "The closet area never got natural sunlight and was extremely dark at night. I could feel that something was watching. The crucifix seemed to keep it out of the room, but it still stared from the closet. So I did the usual, 'Get out, this is my house, I command you to leave' type stuff. I felt that this thing was not going anywhere, that it was not scared at all, and it was not moving. Not long after that, we found a picture of our children on the floor, and it had been smashed in the middle of the frame like something was thrown at it. One night while watching TV, my wife left for work, and I saw a rather large shadow fly out of the bedroom and out towards the car as she was leaving, almost as if it were chasing her. Not long after that, she suffered a stroke and a major car accident, both of which left no lasting injuries. I was again traveling, and when I returned home, I learned that the landlord was kicking us out. I was glad and realized that we had to get out quickly to not be followed. But my wife severely scratched her eye while moving, and that slowed us down more. The last day as we were moving, both my wife and I were out on the back lawn under the window not far from the closet, and we both heard a tapping on the window. No one was in the house. I knew that it was the whole time due to the strength of the presence, that it was a demon. The last night as I left, a neighbor stopped me to talk, and I could see this shadow flittering around the yard. Unfortunately, it followed us to the new house, but it was full of sunshine and good karma. It opened doors, and I saw it a couple of times in the hall. It also bothered my son, who saw it in the basement. I told him to ignore it, do not feed it with the fear, and you will basically bore it into leaving. I have seen run into ghosts and the like, but this was different. Very different." End quote. Now, at first, I really did think they had themselves a demon in the closet of that home, but good karma, positive vibes, it doesn't get rid of demons, so it was more than likely something else that was very lower vibrational, negative, and possibly even evil. It wasn't a demon, though, and luckily for that family, it wasn't. It seems they got very lucky more than a few times based on this encounter. I do wonder why the landlord kicked them out, but there's not any further information about this, so we have to move on. Let me know what you think and why you think it in the comments below, please. From Reddit user Ganesha, we have an encounter she said happened to her when she was in the 5th grade back in 2005. One night, she and her sister were doing what they always did, chasing one another all around their house, when suddenly things weren't so normal anymore. Our witness said, quote, "The hole we were running in is only wide enough for one person, and at the very end on the right is ours," I think meaning our room. "She runs into the room, and once I get there, I immediately get this feeling of just this heavy, dark atmosphere. I stop at the door, the light is off, but I don't turn it on. For some reason, I can tell the feeling is coming from the closet, but I walk in the opposite room of the closet and look under the bed. Halfway up, I hear, 'I'm in here, come get me.' The voice is my sister, but yet it isn't my sister. It was high-pitched and screamed danger to me at the time, while the closet door opened an inch or two. I was so damn scared. I still remember the fear that I felt that day. I took off and ran into the computer room, and my sister was sitting right there. I freaked out and was trying to speak, but I couldn't get everything out. She confirmed she saw me, but was scared and sat on the computer doing nothing until I showed up." End quote. This was very scary, but it annoyed me because that's all there is to it. I doubt very much that this would have been the only encounter the girls had in that home or on the property where it stood, but she or they may not be connecting it because this particular encounter left such an impression on them that it's kind of overshadowing everything else. It would be highly unusual for it to have just been this one encounter in that closet that one time throughout whatever time they lived there, their lives or however many years. Mimics usually aren't demons, but they are quite demonic. As usual, though, I have no way of finding out more information, so let's move on. Another report from Reddit, this one from user Melancholy Macaroni, claimed she had a terrifying ordeal involving a closet when she was a very young girl. One night, she woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of something like light rattling, and it seemed like it was coming from the closet of her bedroom. The closet door was closed, and she said it sounded to her a little like someone was inside of the closet and pushing against the door, trying to get out of the closet. At first, she thought it was her sisters trying to play a prank on her to scare her, and she was about to scream at them to cut it out and stop messing around. However, before she was able to muster the courage to do so, something incredibly frightening and somewhat bizarre happened. She said about it, quote, "As I waited and was about to call out to them, Confusion quickly turned to fear, so intense that it cut straight through me to the very depths of my soul, and it still gives me goosebumps to this day. The light rattling turned into a deafening, aggressive shaking and slamming from my closet door rather than my bedroom door or the bathroom door. Something or someone was there in my room with me. My throat went dry, and suddenly I couldn't speak or make any noise. I strained my vocal cords, just wanting any remote sound to come out, but nothing came. I could barely breathe. The only movement I could do, because of the immediate rush of chemicals and the effects of shock, was to pull my blankets over my head and cry silent tears, because every fiber of my being thought I was going to be killed then and there by some unknown monster lurking just beyond my closet door. I was raised Christian. I don't affiliate with any specific religion now, so I was bargaining, begging, and pleading that God would intervene and save my life. The thought that there was a demon / ghost / unknown being / negative energy / etc. with bad intention that was in my room completely dismantled any sort of security I had in the faith that I would be saved. As I lay trembling with fear, the shaking stopped after about 1 minute or two. It felt like eternity. I was relieved for only a moment until a thought entered my head. What if it's not gone? I was terrified even more because of the silence, the idea that something had opened my closet door and began making its way towards me. I became completely paralyzed in my bed and breathed so quietly, frightened that maybe it wouldn't notice me. I fell asleep eventually after being tortured by my thoughts and my fear of what was happening all around me. When I woke, I ran to my parents to see if an earthquake had happened the night before or if they had been woken up by the door. They said no to both questions. I don't have an answer as to what happened that night. I only have the experience, which still haunts me to this day, end quote. This one sounds to me like this child picked something up by accident and that for whatever reason, it realized it couldn't get to her, didn't want to get to her. When spirits and energies and entities attach to people, sometimes it's just not simpatico energy, and they will very quickly move on to the next person or just continue to move on until they find the next, I want to say being, but I should say human being to attach to. Also, attachments can't or won't attach to someone who doesn't have the right energy. So if this little girl was living a relatively trauma-free life at the time and there wasn't too much negativity and or sadness in the home, it's likely that it fed off of the terror but knew it couldn't really latch on and get into her soul. Of course, as always, I am merely making educated guesses and trying to determine the simplest solutions here based on what I already know about these types of things. Once again, though, I don't think this was actually a demon in the closet, but perhaps just something lower vibrational that was passing through. I found another encounter on the site Your Ghost Stories, and this one took place in Massachusetts in 2002. Our witness had just moved into a small apartment in what they described as a semi-rural town. She said it was located within a very old apartment building complex and that the door to the closet in her bedroom didn't close all the way or didn't close properly. She spent her first night there, though, without any issues and loved the somewhat quaint little place that was all her own. The activity within the closet didn't start until her second night there, and all of it revolved around the closet and its seemingly broken door. She talked about it more by saying, quote, sometimes in the middle of the night, the closet door slammed open as if someone had kicked it open from the inside. It smacked into the wall and slammed shut again. I know this because it happened many more times over the next few weeks. As you can imagine, I was catapulted out of sleep in a panic. I sat upright staring at the closet door. It was closed. I was terrified and too petrified to reach out for the light in the darkness. I probably sat like that for a good 15 minutes before I could move. Once I got the light turned on, I left it for the remainder of the night. The closet door continued to do its thing as the weeks went on, and accompanied by lights turning on in the middle of the night, doors locking on their own, the stereo doing whatever the hell it wanted, cabinet doors all being opened when I got home from work, and other various things. I was not happy, but I didn't know what to do. One Friday night, a friend came over for dinner, and I told him all about my situation, admitting that I was scared and might need to already move out. He told me not to worry about it and that he would have a little chat with my ghost. I was a little uncomfortable with it, but he insisted. I poured myself a glass of wine and went outside to peer in through my bedroom window while my friend sat on the floor in front of my open closet and had what appeared to be a one-sided conversation with what and or whoever was inside. After about 15 minutes or so, he closed the closet door and signaled to me that he was finished. He wouldn't tell me what he said, but he assured me that my troubles would be over, and they were, for 5 wonderfully peaceful years. In the summer of 2007, I was working on my computer in my bedroom, listening to music and enjoying the warm breeze through the window when I heard a loud crash from the other end of the apartment. I ran into the kitchen to find a beautiful old ceramic serving platter that I had left on the counter, smashed in the middle of the kitchen floor about 5 feet from the counter. That was the end of the peace and quiet. For the next 10 months, I endured an ever-increasing amount of activity, which even my friend couldn't do anything about. My boyfriend would no longer stay in my apartment alone for more than 5 minutes at a time, and other friends often said they felt uncomfortable there, even with others around. In the spring of 2008, I moved to another small town in Massachusetts and haven't experienced anything at all to indicate my current home is haunted, end quote. This one is the only one so far that I would at the very least consider that it might have been a demonic presence, but with no more information, it's impossible to tell one way or another. If it was, I guess regardless if it was or not, I would be interested to know if that friend had any issues in the 5-year hiatus that this girl had. The friend that went in and allegedly talked to the entity in the closet and then she had no more issues, it had to be feeding somewhere. So did it latch on to him? The next one comes from the site True Ghost Tales and is equally as creepy as the rest of them were so far. Our witness said she was very little at the time, but remembers that her father had come home late, very drunk, and that he had started a very loud argument with her mother. This unfortunately wasn't out of the ordinary or anything unusual for this little girl and what went on in her home. But she said what happened next definitely was. She was watching TV while sitting on the couch, minding her own business as she normally did, and I'm sure, sadly, trying to remain as quiet and as small as possible, when suddenly she heard her father screaming at the top of his lungs in horror and seemingly in shock. Everyone in the house ran to where the screaming was coming from, and they all ended up in the parents' bedroom, and what they saw in there confused and shocked and terrified all of them. The girl's father was knelt down and cowering in a corner of the room and was screaming that the devil had come out of the closet and tried to forcefully take him out of there. At first, everyone was just confused because the father wasn't making much sense, but eventually he calmed down enough to articulate better what had happened, and the witness said about the rest, quote, "Anyway, we were all too freaked out, so we all fell asleep in the living room, and the next day my dad told us the story again, but this time he said he heard a man's voice, then he heard someone opening my closet door. He wanted to show us where he saw it come from, and since it was daytime, I really wasn't scared that much. We all went to my room, then my dad opened my closet door, and we saw this figure of a man standing inside my closet as if it was asleep. Its arms were on its chest, and he was all in black with long fingernails, and he had wings. The weird thing about all of this is that a few days later, I saw it in my room. I was watching TV in the living room. We had the hall light on, so that way it could reflect light into my room, but that night the light only reflected halfway. I saw a dark shadow standing in the middle of my room. Then he took his hand out and started moving his index finger, asking me to come with him with reddish yellow eyes. I was so scared that I couldn't move at all. I was screaming for my parents, but they couldn't hear me at all. How could this be when they were only 10 feet away from me? All he did to me was he lifted me up and kissed my forehead and my neck, then he left, just like that. We never saw it again, but sometimes when I'm in the dark, I feel like someone is there with me. I sometimes wonder if it was a vampire or something else," end quote. Harken back to day one, I put a story just like this that a lot of people will find a little ridiculous or hard to believe. Remember, it's supposed to be lighthearted and fun. It's the 7 days of Halloween. All of this rang true to me except for the part where they basically found a sleeping vampire upside down in the closet, and I wonder if perhaps this girl's mind was filling in some blanks to make the situation make at least a little bit more sense. This does sound demonic to me, but it sounds more like some sort of addiction demon who wanted to ramp up more fear, violence, and anger in the home, and once it had terrified the father, decided to move on to the rest of the family, starting with the children. This could have also been a vampire, and that's why the girl's head filled in that weird blank, or filled in that blank in such a bizarre way. A real vampire would never leave itself in a position to be uncovered or exposed to human beings during daytime, and that's why, regardless of what this monster was, it's impossible that it happened in the exact way she explained that it did. Other than that, I really did find this story to be very believable and even somewhat credible. And I would have to look more into it or interview the witness to know exactly what we're dealing with here. I wonder if she has children and if her children ever saw or otherwise experienced anything scary or strange in their lives. Let me know what you all think in the comments about this one as well, guys. And just a little side note here, I am very, very sick. My throat is on fire. My nose is stuffed up. I think I have a fever. So that's why my voice and like the way that I'm reading through things is a little bit awkward. When normally I feel like I'm much better at my presentation, but I'm doing the best I can. I have to get 7 videos filmed, 2 of them today. So thank you for your patience with me. On the site Gods and Monsters, I found a particularly violent case of something lurking in the closet, and this is actually more common than most people would think it is. This witness gave her name as Louise Celeste Strutt, and she said she was 13 years old at the time. This is when she said she started to experience attacks on her that were of a sexual nature, but that had been perpetrated by something evil and inhuman. That's your trigger warning, guys. It started one night at around 11 p.m. while she was lying in bed awake and reading a book. She heard what she said was, quote, a screeching sound, end quote, coming from her bedroom closet, and over the next few minutes the sound became more aggressive and more loud. She got up and warily walked towards the closet door, not really sure what to expect, but knowing she needed to see for herself what it was that was causing the noises. And as more horrible and terrifying sounds shot out from within, she bravely stepped forward and flung the closet door open to see what was happening before she had given herself a chance to chicken out, right? She just went up and was like, wah, and ripped it open. I don't know if she made that noise or not, but y'all know what I mean. So she flung the closet door open and braced herself for whatever she was about to see in there, but there was nothing there. The noises had stopped at that point, and they had stopped the moment she flung the door open, and when she opened her eyes, she saw nothing and heard nothing, as though there hadn't been anything there to begin with, and she had imagined it all somehow. That's enough to make you want to lose your mind, in my opinion. After a moment or two of confusion and shock, she decided there was nothing else to do, and so she went back to sit in her bed and started reading. Then she decided to try to go to sleep, and as she laid there in the dark, trying to get back to sleep, she couldn't relax and couldn't keep her eyes closed and couldn't keep her eyes off of the closet. She was worried that the noises would start again, and as soon as she closed her eyes, the noises did start again, and our witness jumped up and just stared at the closet, terrified. It was even more frightening, the noises, than before, and she said about it, quote, I thought it was over, but instead I began to hear chains moving and footsteps coming from out of the closet, and right across my room past the end of my bed and over to my sister's bed, where whatever or whoever it was seemed to sit down. I felt like a scared rabbit staring at where I assumed its face was, and the worst part was, I could tell it was staring back. I just sat there for a minute or so, frozen in disbelief. Then a wave of fear swept over me, and I felt tears welling up in my eyes, but any attempts to scream or call for help were stifled before they could be uttered. Then I heard it give a long sigh, as clearly as anything. It was in a male voice, but not particularly deep, as if to say, oh great. I made her cry. Whatever grip this entity had on me was released, and I bolted out the door and down the stairs to the living room where I sat behind everyone on a chair. End quote. I guess she was the only one sleeping at that point? This wasn't the end, though, and it seems to me as though whatever this thing was, it was feeding off of her fear. It would continuously emerge from the closet to stand in the shadows, either at the end of the bed or in a random corner of the room, to watch her while she slept or while she laid there with her eyes scrunched shut, trying to pretend like it wasn't there or like she could think it all away somehow. However, it got really bad, especially regarding the physical assaults on her, and many people familiar with this account believe this was an incubus demon. I'm inclined to agree, to a point. She talked about the bizarre and terrifying experiences by saying, quote, I was sleeping, having some strange dream, when I was awoken by a weightiness on my chest. I opened my eyes and I could see the curtains across from where I lay. It looks like the early hours of the morning. Then my attention shifted to what was causing the slight weight on my chest. I turned my head to look directly above me, and there, staring at me intently, was a face unlike any I've ever seen. His skin was white, but not just pale. He was as white as my bed sheets. He had jet black hair, and strangely enough, I remember tiny, thin, black needle-like pins holding his hair away from his face. His eyes are what struck me the most. They were extremely pale blue, and his pupils resembled that of a cat's, only thinner. I was extremely groggy as we stared at each other, both somewhat bewildered. All I can remember thinking was, he's so beautiful. And just like that, my vision went blurry and I blacked out. Perhaps he put me to sleep. Maybe I wasn't supposed to wake up. Honestly, I don't know. But what I want to know is, why was he on top of me in the first place? The thought of that was frightening, but at the same time, I was strangely enchanted by him. I began seeing him regularly in my dreams. He told me he was there because we were destined to be lovers or something to that extent. I remember him kissing me and telling me things. As things progressed, he began to be more sexual with me. I didn't know what to do. I was only 13, but he seemed to have no regard for my age at all. I began to feel as though I were being touched while I was awake, or I would feel a hand on my shoulder. My sister began to tell me that she felt there was something in the house and that it was around me. I would walk into my bedroom and hear loud breathing behind me and feel eyes watching me. It was disconcerting, end quote. Listen, I'm not sure if this was an incubus or not, and I'm not sure if this is the writing of a child who's enchanted with the idea of a vampire like Edward Cullen from Twilight being in love with a teenage girl like Bella Swan, because that's kind of what it sounded like to me. But in putting that aside, we'll say it's highly unusual for someone who encounters an incubus for them to think the creature or entity is beautiful, and also they normally make sure that you're awake throughout the assault. So, for the first bit of her explanation, I was totally thinking it was an incubus, but on hearing more of her story and about what she'd been through with the entity, I believe it could be some sort of elemental or fairy creature or being. I really do wish I had more information about what happened to this person specifically going forward, but unfortunately, as usual, there's no more information that I could find as to how and if this ended or what happened next. Reddit user Horkall said that in the fall of 2009, he and his girlfriend had been living in a bungalow that had been built in 1953 for just a few months when she started complaining to him that something had been bothering and harassing her in the middle of the night while he was sleeping. She said the entity would touch her. It would stroke her face, her chest, her hair, her legs, feet, etc., her body in general. He really didn't think anything about it until he saw something happening with his own eyes. It happened 2 weeks after his girlfriend had told him about what she was experiencing, but what he saw had come from the closet. He said, quote, "About 2 weeks later, I went to bed late. She was already asleep. I climbed into bed and looked over my shoulder towards the bathroom door. There stood a 7-foot shadow figure. I immediately tried to debunk it by looking at the light coming from under the door from the living room. The bathroom light was not on, and there was foil over the windows since I worked nights and slept during the day." Guy, just get blackout curtains. I then looked back towards it, standing there motionless. Next, I glanced to the left of it at our closet. It was a large walk-in with a green tapestry hanging on a rod for a door. The light was on inside, and what did I see? Floating in the closet was a demon, which looked male and mean as hell. It had scales like a reptile. Its arms were outstretched and thumbs pointing down. It was rotating its head to the left and to the right. The best I can describe its face was seething or hissing. It had no legs, and it was floating from the waist up. I watched it for a few seconds, just long enough to notice every detail of its skin and face. Then I laid down and immediately fell asleep. Why did I just lay down and go to sleep? I think it had control of my mind. I later began to think maybe a jinn had attached itself to me when I was in Iraq. I've had issues with extreme anger, rage, depression, and anxiety ever since. I'm not religious and never had any thoughts of demons before this moment, end quote. First of all, I don't think that this was a jinn, and I'm skeptical that it was a demon, though it could have been. Demons usually do more than just appear and stare at you, giving you a thumbs down, even if it did cause such maximum fear. However, they do feed off of the fear energy as well, but for a demon, they don't need that energy to live or survive. You know who I think might need that energy, though? Maybe the reptilian extraterrestrials. Remember, we don't know every species there is to know regarding the reptilians, so I honestly don't know what to think about this one, guys. Like, I believe it was something, but again, when we only have one encounter, and it's such an intense and extreme encounter that there's no way there could only be one, that's where we run into problems with, and why people get frustrated with, I suppose, the Reddit encounter stories. Let me know what you all think about this one and or all of the previous encounters in the comments. Do you have your own encounters with monsters or demons in your closets? I do, and I've talked about one particular little demonic creature that tormented me when I was little a couple of times. Let me know, though, if you have anything by emailing me your encounters, and all that information will be in the description box and on the screen at the end of the video. That's all I have for you today, guys. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed the content, if you enjoyed hanging out and spending this time with me. Spread the love, please, by sharing this video out. This is day 2 of my 7 days of Halloween special. Make sure you're subscribed, okay? Even if you think you are, you may not be. and make sure your notification bell is on and switch to all. This video and so much of what I do here on this channel is sponsored by my members. Paranormal Pixie, Ghost Dragon ZW, Aunt Edna, Heather B, Vixen Doe, Divine Empathic Tarot, Cheeky Kiki, Alexander Unverhall, Diane Boss, Black Dragon, The Batmom, Kelly Lewis, Multifaceted Jules, Let the Monsters In with Ryan Tremblay, Chris Jarvis, Mama Cindy Lee, Jared Crazy Indian, Life with Bobby, Slow Motion, Hurricane Holly, Gary Reed, Blue Crossroads, KC, Wendy Williams, Nut Slap, and Val SWPA in no particular order. Thank you so much to my members. If you would like to become a member, there are some member perks and benefits right now, but I'm trying to get more together for you guys, things that don't take a ton of time for me to do, but that you guys would really enjoy. And particularly if you're a fan of my Friday Night Live Intuitive Oracle stream, you may want to check that out, because anyone who is not a member does have to pay $2 per card going forward. Also, if you become a patron and you pledge $20 a month or more, you will automatically receive a personal intuitive oracle reading from me. Again, I'm sorry, my words are kind of like slurring together, like I'm really sick, but I have to get this done today. So I hope that I didn't do too bad a job or make too poor showing in this video, because I do have another one to do. Please consider making donations to the channel through PayPal or Cash App, sending me a gift, Amazon wishlist gift link, that information here on the screen. The wish list gift link information in the description box, guys. It's how I get paid. So without donations, I really don't make anything. And I do work, 50, 60, sometimes 70 hours a week on this channel. Links to my books, Kindle, paperback, and Audible versions of all of my books should be in the description box, but I may have missed one. There are a lot at 10 or 11 books and 3 links per book. So you can go to Amazon and type in Gemma Jade Books to find my whole collection. If you'd like an autographed copy of any of my books, multiple books, whatever, if you want to get in touch with me, if you want to send in your own personal encounter stories, my email is GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. Feel free to email me with questions. I do offer a lot of products and services that I don't think a lot of people know about. So if you need help with something spiritually, if you want to do video sessions, video intuitive oracle readings, spiritual helper boxes, Halloween helper boxes, I'm still at this point making them, though by the time you see this, you may not get it by Halloween, depending on where you live, if you order one. General personal intuitive oracle readings as well. If you have TikTok, check me out over there. I'm trying to get 1,000 followers so that I can do more oracle, more tarot, more mediumship readings live over on TikTok, but I need the 1,000 followers in order to do that. If you're on Facebook, look me up, Gemma Jade. I also do have an Instagram, but I'm just learning how to do Instagram, so I may not get back to you and stuff if you're over there, but it would be nice to have a bigger following so that once I do learn how to use it and start getting more comfortable with it, I'll be right there for you all and for your entertainment, because that is what I try to be here for. Guys, if you haven't already, if you don't already, support the shorts. They are, besides donations, the biggest part of this channel that help me make at least some money with what I'm doing here. Be kind to each other, guys. It doesn't cost anything. Be kind to yourselves and never accept anything less than others being kind to you. If nobody told you today, you're amazing. Abundance is your birthright. I believe in you. I got your back. Always go in grace. Smile at a stranger. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.